humans don't always get taller. Like, you stop growing when you reach a certain age.
That's true. I meant like all humans as an entire population. So the entire world, the average height is always a little bit taller.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm going to show you guys this cool example of an adaptation with bird beaks, but using cereal. And yeah.
Activity we'll be doing is bird beak evolution.
Can you guys hear the sound?
Yeah.
Through this, we will learn how different beaks on different birds helps them survive. You will each have 2 paper plates. You can scoop a cup of bird food onto one of the plates that you have. Some of you will get spoons, some of you will get forks, and some of you will get chopsticks. When the timer starts, you can use your utensils to pick up bird food and transfer it to the empty plate. These different utensils help mimic the type of bird beaks that different birds have.
Okay, so what based on the video, what do you think is the most useful? Was it the forks, the spoons, or the chopsticks?
Well, the chopsticks probably took longer.
Yeah, so it really all depends. These are 4 different examples of bird beaks drawn by Darwin, who we talked about at the beginning. He was the father of evolution, right? And so these are kind of like spoons. They're big and they can eat big food, big seeds. These are smaller, so they eat smaller foods. So each of these these are adaptations that help them eat different types of food so they can all survive. Yeah, so now I want you guys all to name a couple adaptations. These are changes. Here are some examples. How about everybody, you guys can either chat or just say one out loud. Any ideas? We talked about bird beaks. We also talked about kind of like humans getting taller. An adaptation is the camel's hump, which can store water.
Maybe could an adaptation be considered your eyesight? Like how you can hunt at night, like.
Yeah, that's a great one. Many animals have, like owls kind of have night vision, so they can see things at night. What is on these cacti?
The needles.
Yeah, so that's also an adaptation because now an animal can't touch the cactus because it'll get spiked.
Yeah, and then another adaptation can be your color, right? If you camouflage into things.
Yep. Yeah, those are great. Okay. Here's another adaptation. This video is super short. It's less than a minute. But this is a really cool one.
The Sidewinder's every move is about combating the desert's relentless heat. Side-to-side motion allows the snake to move using a minimum of energy. It also reduces contact between the Sidewinder's body and the scorching sand. Only 2 short pieces of its body touch the ground at any one time. Like many desert animals, the Sidewinder's nocturnal in the heat of summer, only coming out when the temperatures are at their lowest. But this snake's most remarkable adaptation is the fact that it can survive without a single drop of water, getting all it needs from its prey.
Okay, yeah, that one was a little bit darker, but escape. But basically, the idea of that is that it doesn't need water because it gets the water from eating other animals that have water in them. Okay, our kind of last section for the last 10, 15-ish minutes is all the evidence for evolution. remember how we were talking about that evolution's a theory? Because we can't completely say this happened because 4 billion years ago we weren't around to see it. So there's 4 big types of evidence: classification, fossils, similar structures, and embryos, all of which we will briefly cover. So the first is classification. My guess is you've probably seen something kind of like this before. This is how, so our species would be like humans, like Homo sapiens. That's the genus and the species. And so it's everything in the same, it shows shared characteristics. As you go down, you get more similar. So things in the domain are the least similar, while things in the species are the most similar. And a way we can show this, it's with a cladogram. So this bottom V, let's see, draw, right here, that's the last common ancestor. So all of these animals up here are related somehow to this one down here. And then each of these red lines show where a new trait is made. So if you look here, bony fish don't have 4 limbs, but everything above bony fish, so all of this, does have 4 limbs. That would be like arms and legs. Snakes are an exception to that, though, because obviously they don't have arms. But yeah, so that's kind of how you read this. And it just shows these crocodiles and birds are closer related to each other than, say, jawless fish and birds, because they come closer on this little diagram. Another thing we have is the fossil record. So how do you think we can use fossils like in this picture to show that animals were similar a long time ago? Any ideas?
Comparing bone structures to the current animals?
Yeah, great. That's awesome, because if you look, these skulls, just like you were saying, they're pretty similar. And so that means that those animals are pretty similar. And it's also not just current animals, but it can also be past animals that no longer exist. Like we can compare 2 dinosaurs based on their bones, even though there aren't dinosaurs around anymore.
Yeah, and you can use the, I guess you can use the fossils to compare animals that might have evolved over the years.
Yep, definitely. All of those are awesome answers. Yeah, great job. And we were talking about this, you guys already said it, you can read my mind. Yeah, so the main point of fossils is that they show life is different today compared to a long time ago. The next thing we're going to talk about are homologous and analogous structures. Have you guys heard of those before? These are a little more complicated. Okay, so homologous structures, these are body parts of different animals or different organisms with similar structure, but they have different functions. I'm going to go to the picture real quick. All of these animals, humans, horses, cats, bats, birds, these all look pretty much the same, right? These are legs. This is a hand with an arm. These are horse legs. These are bats. You can see the really long fingers. So these all look similar, but they're used for different things. Bats can fly. Humans cannot fly, as many of us wish we could. So they have different functions, different uses, but they look the same. And this is shared ancestry. So this means that they evolved from a similar organism. Analogous is the opposite, similar function, but not the similar structure. So here's an example. Bird wings and insect wings, they both have the same function. What's that function?
Fly.
Exactly. Yep. But they don't look the same. There are feathers here, there aren't feathers here. And so that's you can't say that these bees are related to the birds because they look different. You can say these animals are related because they look the same. The last one we have for types of structures are vestigial structures. These are things that we just don't use anymore. Like wisdom teeth. I got my wisdom teeth out about 2 months ago because nobody knows why we have them, but it does show shared ancestry. Like our appendix, many people get their appendix out. And so same with goosebumps. These are just things that we have, but there's not really a reason. They're not important for our survival. They're just left over. And the last evidence of evolution, this is embryology. So these are embryos. That is kind of like animals before they're born. And if you look at them, they look pretty similar, which shows that they're related somehow. Okay, yeah. Do you guys have any questions on any of these, the structures?
Teacher Jackson, are you able to share these slides with us?
Of course, yes.
Oh yeah, thanks. And the video too, please. That would be nice.
Yeah, of course. I definitely can do that. Okay, let's see. I think because we only have under 10 minutes left, we're not going to go too much into macroevolution, but I will tell you what it is. We've mostly been talking about microevolution. Micro means small. So these are little changes over time. This is a new dog species forms from another dog or a wolf. Macroevolution is long periods of time. So this is like how dinosaurs have changed to chickens. Natural selection applies to microevolution, but macroevolution is pretty different. So these are species. Species are organisms that can mate and have offspring with each other. There are 4 types of speciation. Do you guys want to hear the different types or?
Please.
Yeah, okay. So there's 4 types. Allopatric, peripatric, parapatric, and sympatric. These are pretty debated over, oh, sorry, chat. Okay, so allopatric speciation, this is creating a new group of animals, a new species because of a geographical barrier. Can you guys give me some examples of what a barrier would be?
Separation due to
What could separate 2 groups of animals?
Their size?
Close, yeah. The size could work.
Their ancestors or where they descend from?
All of those are great answers. Another one would be like a mountain.
or icebergs that
Yeah.
have, like, if you have one polar bear here and then another polar bear here and there's this huge iceberg, well, I guess they can swim, but it still separates them.
Yeah, so let's say they couldn't swim across, or you can't cross the mountain. Then they're isolated and they no longer can mate with each other. That's a new species. The next 2, peripatric and parapatric, they're pretty much the same thing. It's when a small group breaks off and forms a new species. The difference, though, in parapatric speciation, organisms choose to do that. And the last type is sympatric. There's a picture right here. It's this last column. And this one, some people don't think it exists because there's no reason, it just happens. Like, let's say there's 2 trees and one is using a different food source. Because they're eating different foods, they become different species. Yeah. Okay, well, this is kind of the last thing. Sometimes evolution can be somewhat controversial. And that's because evolution is a theory. Microevolution is natural selection over short periods of time. but macroevolution started billions of years ago. So what's the problem with it being billions of years ago? It's that we weren't around, right? There were no people around to tell us what was happening. So this is all animals came from one life form. And there isn't a lot of evidence from this. The things I've told you about, like the embryology or the similar structures, are evidence. But so that's why like evolution can be somewhat controversial. That said, it's still pretty important to study it. So like I kind of like it because it combines science with like history in the past. Do you guys have any ideas like why evolution is important?
Okay, I just have one question. Why did you say like I thought, were you saying like the evolution back then when we weren't around isn't questionable?
No, oh, sorry. I should have been a little more clear. So the evolution when we weren't around is questionable. But the evolution like those mice that I showed you that video of, that's not questionable because that happens within a few years, and so we can see that with our own eyes. That's like small scale. 2 years is not really a long time. 4 billion years is a very long time. Yeah, good question. Okay, so evolution gives us an understanding of the past. We can predict the future. We can guess what animals will look like based on certain adaptations. And it also helps us date events with fossils and how old they are. Some are millions and millions of years old. Okay, so this is our last slide. And do you guys want to answer these or do you want me to just answer them?
We'll try to answer them.
Good, great. Okay, so maybe I think there's like 3 questions, so each of you can do one. The first one's, what is evolution?
The changing of microorganisms over time.
Great, yeah. The change of organisms over time. That's exactly right. Okay, the next one. So how does evolution happen? This was the mice. What is... Yeah, good.
It's to prove that were in the past and that could predict the future.
Yeah, really good. Yep, that's exactly. So that's what natural selection is, right? Looking at the past can help us with the future. Great job, Lewis. There's 2 types of evolution. So big and small. What are those words?
Micro and macro.
Great. Yeah. Oh, and then the process of new species, I can answer this one. That's called speciation. That was the one we went over pretty quickly. And yeah, so while evolution can be questioned, there's a lot of evidence, classification, similar structures, fossils, and embryology. Cool. Okay. This is pretty much it. So do you guys have any questions? I will make sure to give you all the slides. Yeah. But any last questions?
Yeah. No, we don't have.
No? Well then, thanks for coming. Yeah, I appreciate it. This was my first time doing something like this. So kind of scary, but I hope I did okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.